Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome one again to another one of my live streams. And I'm very proud to have in the virtual studio Chris Gilsenan. You may recognize him from the property quorum we had only yesterday. In this live stream, we seek to dig down more on the side of the building industry that directly affects what Chris does. And Chris has been running Root Home, which is a business whereby he rebuilds and buys and develops properties so they can be used, in his case, mostly for social housing. That's really his neck of the woods. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Hi everyone.
Hey, right now,
Nice to see you.
I'm going to jump straight into it because today's topic, as prescribed by Chris, is about niching. Is niching important? So the first thing I'm going to say is, Chris, what is it that you mean by that?
Yeah, well, I think it's funny you did just pull me up on whether it was a verb or not. Before we came on that.
I am a pedant. And the first thing I said to Chris, I wasn't sure whether it should be used as a verb. To niche, I niche, you niche. I don't know, but okay, let's pretend. Let's move that to one side. I'm assuming you mean focus.
I mean specialize. So specialize into an area in which you may be or in which you have a profession. So,
Right.
For example, ours is social housing. We've niched or specialised in that particular area for the last three or so years. And it's paying dividends because we're super focused on what we're doing. Not to say that we weren't super focused before, but it's very easy to get distracted because there's lots of different specialisms in property investment. So it's not knowing where to start. And I did mention before we came on air that when you start looking at it, looking at any profession, I guess, but property and real estate in particular, first you don't know where to start, and then when you do start looking, there's a plethora of different strategies that are open to you.
Some of which appear to be at first sight contradictory. So it's difficult to know which ones to choose.
It can be very difficult to know which ones to choose and where to start. Different ones have different barriers to entry in terms of capital requirements. Knowledge is definitely a barrier to entry, and different strategies have different risk levels as well. So yeah, not knowing where you're going is my old man always says you go through a process. So first you're unconsciously incompetent, so you don't know what you don't know. Then you move to consciously incompetent. You know that you don't know where you're doing. And as you're going through the education process, you become consciously competent. And then once you really know how to get into the flow of doing things, you become unconsciously competent. And most people are at that first or second stage where they're like, I don't know. Everyone's been there. Everyone starts from that level of not knowing. And the property industry, there's lots of coaching companies and people who make their money off lots of coaching.
There is a lot of that out there.
There's a few dubious characters, and having to wade through the BS is, I guess, part of the process, and navigate the sharks. There's a lot there. But when you do come across people who do know what they're doing and can deliver education that will help grow you as a person, right. Yeah, the opportunities are abundant. So once you see those opportunities, then you're like, well, shit, which way do I go? Where do I take this? So yeah, and I guess me and my business partner, because we've come through such educated networks and had such incredible people around us. I guess part of the challenge that we've had is that we try to do lots and lots of different things. Not necessarily badly, but it's a distraction on one's focus, and you're constantly measuring your success against other people's success. But it's the trap that we all fall into. The remedy is recognizing that different people move at different speeds, and that's just the nature of life.
So okay, look, you've got a very obvious niche, but you weren't always that way, right?
No,
you had fingers in multiple pies, and what I wanted to know is, what process was it that by which you realized that was the niche you wanted to settle on?
So really, a lot of it's been trial and error. doing things that we like, well, we thought we liked the sound of, that also had the potential to deliver the end goals that we were looking to achieve. So, for example, some of the HMO portfolios that we've grown for ourselves and for our clients, but in a different space, so not in the social housing space, more geared towards professional tenants. And we scaled them very quickly, but also quickly realized that we've made a rod for our own back in the types of tenant profiles that we were self-managing and
Right.
dealing with all the headaches associated with operating a large portfolio with all the issues that comes with that, and we didn't like it. And so that's just one example of the trial and errors that we've done, and we've realised from our own mistakes that that's not the way that we want to go.
But were there times where you were going through this process, which is, I assume, iterative? You start off by saying, well, we can do a bit of all these things, and you realize that some of them aren't where you should be putting your energies, and you've gradually reduced it down to a core. And
Yeah,
as you said, it's paying dividends. But during that process, because I've heard this before myself, because I like you, I specialize in LinkedIn. But there were times where I've had members of my team say, we should be doing Facebook, we should be doing Twitter, we should be doing this and this and this. And I say, no, our focus is very much laser on this. So do you ever feel that you're being swayed by finding knowledge about other areas that you could be investing time, energy, and money in, and effort in? Sorry.
it happens all the time. The world is abundant with opportunity, and the challenge that you have is that you only have so much time in your day. There are all sorts of different things. I mean, things outside of the world of property as well, outside of the world of real estate. That there are still huge, huge opportunities there. That if I had the time and the mental capacity, I'd love to dive into. I'd love to get involved in. But what I've learned is that it's the old adage of 10,000 hours makes you starts to make you on the path to becoming an expert at what you're doing and what your industry is, and without actually niching down into specific detail in your industry or into something that you want to laser focus on and become good at, that never happens, and you effectively do become that jack of all trades and master of none.
Which is the worst label one can ever be. I mean, I know knowing a handyman that can fix a tap and 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 grouch your bathroom is useful to know, but I'd far rather go for a specialist any day of the week, because then
Mm,
I know that that particular job we've done particularly well. And I think that there are too many people, especially out there in the old interwebs, who are promoting themselves as being able to do everything, and they call it. This always makes me laugh. Again, my pedantry with English, but they say we're a specialist on all these subjects. It's like,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
defeating the very meaning of the word specialist. Um, you know, and I think there is an urge that, especially in what you do, that you come across, as you say, one of these abundant opportunities. You think, well, maybe I've just spent a couple of hours a week on that. It could bring a lovely dividend in. It might be fun. And then you realize that actually that's the last 2 hours where you're supposed to be spending with your kids or
yeah.
or, or eating.
I've got nothing against hobbyists, nothing at all. But that's not what this is about. That's not what I'm doing now, and that's not why I'm
No,
niching down into what we're doing. We're focused very much on a professional operation that's revenue driven and profit driven, and that's just the nature of having to put food on the table for the family, and that is important to us. Um,
I think there was a famous ex-dragon off the BBC who once said, it's probably he didn't come up with it, but I do like it, which is that revenue is vanity and it's profit that's sanity. And really, if you're driven by that profit, you've got to develop a machine, a business that will bring that to you. If it's random, then that's a hobbyist.
yeah,
And
good old Duncan had a very good point at that point. It's not just how much money you make, but effectively how much money you keep. Yeah, yeah, and
and that's
yeah,
about streamlining your processes so that your clients you get the end result they desire, but you retain enough profit to make it worth your while to do so.
That's right. That's right. And I've been the fool that's had all these shiny penny syndromes in the past and tried to do all these different things, and yeah, it doesn't work the way that you'd hope it would. You just
I kind of find that reassuring, though. I hate to say it, that you've actually lived that life. You've been through that process. Well, no, a lot of people I come across them, and it's like they were specialists from the get go, and you've kind of come upon it by having realised that your time was being frittered on
well,
everything.
a wiser person would have learned from other people's mistakes, rather than have to live them myself. But
Yeah.
at least I've learned the lesson and the experience from having
Well,
gone
they
through
say
it.
that the lesson stays learned if it's lived experience, I tend to
Hmm.
find, you know?
Yes, lessons of pain generally do stay on the psyche quite indelibly. Yeah.
So 3 years now that you've been focused on the social housing.
We've been focused pretty much exclusively on social housing for the last 3 years or so. There's
Right.
still a few other things that we do just to keep our toe in the water, but just to keep our minds from going insane because there are certain there's a lot of repetitiveness with niching down into something as you're building and systemizing.
As I said, if you systemize and you streamline your business processes, then I'm afraid by definition they become repetitive
Yes.
and that leads potentially to tedium. So I suppose you have to keep it a little bit fresh.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, there's plenty of opportunity within what we do to keep it fresh as well. So there's a small selection of registered providers, for example, that we currently work with. I have absolutely no trouble at all expanding that, other than finding the providers who have that consistency of demand.
And therein lies the rub because once again, you'd be looking for specialists rather than generalists,
Mm,
I'm
yes,
presuming.
yeah.
Following that same pattern. There's no so it must be hard though finding a specialist who comes up to the standards you're looking for consistently.
It can be, yes, yeah, it can be. It's it's not an easy thing trying to find the right people to collaborate with. Yeah.
I mean, I've in the past where I've been using trades myself because I rebuilt. I knocked 3 houses into one, and during that process, of course, you find out everything you never knew about anything, which was everything basically. I knew nothing about the whole thing. I'm by no means a specialist now, but I can tell you horror stories about it all, from plumbing to roofing. But the what was interesting was, first of all, the ones who only did the one thing. So the roofer who didn't do guttering and everything else, but just did roofing, tended to be the best one. But then finding the one that actually was good at turning up on time, and the other also the electrician who would actually clear up after himself. That was that seems to be a hard thing to find.
Yeah, there's that's another rabbit hole. Let's not go down there.
Well, it's just you're looking for people who are who would work within your place and or work within whatever location you send them to, but would treat the location with some respect and not leave the place more messy than when they arrived. You know, I maybe that's me looking for the sun. I don't know. Is that too much to ask? Is that should I are my standards too high?
I think we could have a whole different discussion on standards. Yeah,
Oh
that's a
yeah.
that
Well, look, look,
that
look, in what you do, you're taking, for instance, an existing domicile and then turning it into an HMO, but where
so,
each element within that HMO is up to a certain standard, right?
that's right. That's right.
And it's the achievement of consistency within that that then makes the whole thing with tenants in place attractive to a third party. But
Yeah, it's
so you must be seeking a certain standard, right? A certain level of consistency. I'm trying not to go down that rabbit hole. I know that, but it's
the product has to be consistent. Yes, yeah,
right.
absolutely. Yes, yeah.
Otherwise,
Otherwise the provider who is leasing the property from us would not be happy. I mean, why would they if the place looks great and then falls apart within 3 months? That's not
yeah.
okay.
No, no, of course not. But it's not uncommon. I hear stories about this all the time. You know, that they buy into something they think is going to be one way, and they by the 3 months down the line, it turned out to be something quite different. So look, let's summarize where we're at. I think because I'm just going to wind this up right now, but before we do, niching, in my mind, and correct me if I'm wrong, is only good if you've become, I wouldn't call it a master, but or an expert, but you've been through enough fire and water to come out the other side, to learn to enough to understand the value of only providing expertise in one small area.
And I'd also like to possibly reframe that a little bit, in that
Okay.
niching is potentially the path to mastery of a discipline. And being if you choose to be the wise person, then you can save yourself the pain of having to experience
Dare I
not
say it?
what
Dare I
niching is not.
hark Chris's words? Well, find specialists in the fields you want to do that in areas that you're not good at doing it. Focus on the area that you think you can represent best, and I think these are words to cover a multitude of professions. Frankly,
I think anything, yeah, any profession, anything you want to be good at, anything you want to master, yeah, specialize, niche
Chris,
down.
I think we've created our own philosophy. Thank you very much for taking part in today's live stream. As you know, that we tend to produce these on Friday. Chris and I will talk about topics often in and around property, but we seem to have created rules for life as well. Who knew? I would wish you all a wonderful weekend, and of course, safe mental health. Thank you very much, Chris.